Ladies and gentlemen, ears of corn all over the internet and indeed the world. We are back again with another trio episode. Tonight, I am joined on the Corn Chronicles, The Search Continues, by the lovely Miss Emily Krause and the lovely Mrs. Deanna Krause. Welcome, ladies. How's it going?
Thanks. It's kind of weird to have, two female Krauses mentioned at once. I feel like I've never heard anyone say that.
Yeah, I got to be honest, because I do, an outline is a strong word, believe me. There's no formality to this show. The fact that I've done about 35 of these should tell you how informal they are. But I did write down Emily Krause, and then I wrote down Deanna Stockhausen, and then I was like, oh yeah, no, that's not it anymore. Old habits die hard on that.
Yeah.
So, ladies, first and foremost, I really appreciate you being with me this evening. I really look forward to speaking with you. We all go way back to high school days, and certainly throughout that time and beyond, all the way back to Italian class with Emily, and of course, just some good times with Deanna as well. And I know we'll certainly discuss a lot of things as we move forward with the conversation. So I admit, when I do these kind of one-on-one, I tend to focus more on origin stories and tell me a little bit about this and a little bit about that. But I think the fact that there are two of you here, I kind of want to switch things up and do things in kind of reverse order. I want to jump right into one of my favorite memories of the three of us, and of course our dear friends and husbands in this case. I want to jump right to setting the stage for going to visit the Rhombus.
I knew it. I knew it too.
Yeah, no doubt. We all do. So to set the stage, I do not want to be the one to tell the story, but I feel like this was briefly told when I had the pleasure of speaking with Alex Greavy. But to set the stage and paint the scene a little bit, we were leaving from Astoria and making our way to Columbia, Maryland to go see a fish show. And I'm happy to say that I've had the luxury of seeing fish shows with Krause family and extended family. At this point, I've seen probably about 8 shows with them and 11 shows total. But this one was especially special because the journey itself, for a brief time, was shrouded in a bit of mystery in the form of an excursion that I knew nothing about, and I knew that Ben was keeping very secret. I kind of want to start with Deanna because I feel like in my head she's the only one who might have known where we were going. Can you kind of talk me through kind of what were you in on with regard to making that journey together when we were all obviously in that car making that trip?
Well, first of all, it was a special show because it was also my first fish show. Was it your first fish show, Emily?
It was not my first, but it was definitely one of the early ones.
Okay. Was it yours, Tom?
It was not. No, that was your first one, huh?
That's my first fish show. So
Wow.
I didn't know what to expect. So Ben wanted to make this whole production of it, and we had to go to, it was Princeton University, to visit the Rhombus because that's where Trey used to hang out, I think, and write his songs sitting on the Rhombus. And Ben was like, the Rhombus, and he told me all this history about it, which obviously was so long ago I forgot most of it. But he wanted to go to this Rhombus. So I knew that we were going to go there, but I was also like, wow, this is a really long car ride already. Now we have to go on this excursion. And I think that's why Emily was a little fed up with it by the time we got there.
Yeah, I think the other big thing for me was I had graduated from University of Delaware a couple weeks before. Mm-hmm. And, when you graduate college, you don't know the next time that you're going to see your college friends that live in other states. But for me, all my college friends were coming to this show. So it had been a couple of weeks, and I was really excited to see them again and meet up with them. And, for them, it wasn't as long as a trip. They were getting there early, and we were supposed to meet them. But I was the one driving. However, I knew it was important for Ben to, make it to this legendary shape in the ground. So, I think I was a little antsy myself, like, I want to get there, I'm so excited. And I don't think any of us knew what was going to be located on Princeton University, including the staff that worked there.
Yes, indeed. And that brings me to my next point. We're making this journey, and Emily is driving, and Deanna is staying, kind of mum's the word about it because Ben is being secretive about it. And I remember Greeley and I, at least in my head, but in speaking with him, like, we were the only ones that are just kind of like, hey man, like, kind of cruddy out, like, are we going to the show? Like, where are we going, And Ben the whole time in his very kind of Tom Sawyer way about it is just like, you'll see, just you wait. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, all right, man, cool, I guess. and so we pull up to finally the Princeton campus, and at least my recollection of it is we're on the Princeton campus, and now we don't know what to do. So like now it's just like, now we're just literally driving around, and everybody in the car at this point is just like, yo, Ben, where are we going? And Ben's like, oh, I don't really know, but I trust that we'll find it. And that brings us to pull up to very much what I would call kind of a security gate. And yeah, Ben is excited as ever. Everyone in the car who's not Ben, as confused as ever. And that leads us to very much one of the most special moments that I've had the chance to witness, because I feel like the way I would describe it is it's like the most genuine sibling moment in the world. I feel like Noelle has said it to me and been right. I feel like I've said it to Noelle and been right. And I feel like it just has like every bit of that authenticity to this kind of a sibling bond. And I don't want to steal that thunder from you, Emily. Can you tell me kind of what you said, or what kind of the crescendo of that trip kind of was?
Yeah, so we pulled up to the security booth, not knowing where to go. And Princeton is a pretty big campus. So we pulled up, and I guess Ben must have been sitting in the front seat next to me. And he looks over and says, he's like, oh, we got to ask them where it is. And he goes, I'll bet they get this question all the time. And I turned to the side and looked at him and said, I'll bet they don't. And everyone in the car just went silent. And I, not to be that sibling, but I do think we asked them and they looked at us like we were crazy.
I had no clue. It was not a common question.
They knew we were not students, we'll say.
We did make it there somehow, though. We found that rhombus.
Yeah. We made it to the rhombus. It was very cool. And I'm slighting them a little bit. I get that. But one of the funniest things in the world I've ever seen was Ben Krause on top of it, and then kind of being hesitant to jump down from it, even though it's only like 6 feet in the air. It was pretty lovely. I cherish that.
You know what? I'm glad we made it there, because just to see how happy he was, and it was only a short detour off, and I think we had a great show and a really fun night. So I think it made his trip, and it made for a good story about 10 years later now. So
yeah, here we see.
I recall a little too much fun, Emily. You couldn't even make it home the next day.
Yeah, it was not one of my finer 5-hour car rides home, but it happens to the best of us.
It sure does. You had 2 weeks to catch up on. You were seeing your friends. I got it.
Yeah.
Oh, good. That's a good.
It's a special moment when you can bring together like 2 different groups of friends.
Isn't it, man? It really is so cool, man.
Anything goes at a fish show.
Yes. So with that in mind, I don't usually throw kind of these nebulous questions out, but is there, if I were to put each of you on the spot, is there like a favorite fish memory? Now that obviously, Deanna, you're well past your first show, and Emily, I know you've seen them more than a few times yourself. If I were to put you on the spot and ask for a favorite fish memory, does anything kind of jump to mind for you?
I think a lot of it is, around the people you're there with and what kind of experience you're having. And Deanna and I both have gone to a lot of shows with a lot of different friends, as well as a lot of shows with family. I think for me, if I could think of two specific, they both involve trips, because when you can make a weekend out of it, it's kind of a different experience. So one is definitely one that I'll always remember in Colorado for Ben's 30th birthday, which I'm sure you recall as well.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's a specific memory, but more so just the weekend.
I kiss you.
I remember that.
I wasn't going there.
Oh man, nor was I, but I remember that too. Boy, oh boy.
He thought that she was me.
I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, if you want, feel free. I'm not, Ben, it wasn't my idea, man.
Maybe Ben had a little too much fun, we'll say.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
As you should on your 30th birthday.
I think he asked Jake to be one of his groomsmen twice, and he forgot.
I think it was 3 times.
3 times. Yeah. So what's your other favorite, Emily? Sorry for interrupting.
It's definitely Magna Fall, which was a 3-day festival upstate New York in Watkins Glen, which I have another story about. I don't know if this is one of my favorite memories personally, but looking back, it's like a really good story to tell. We were walking to, it was a 3-day festival, so we were walking around and kind of seeing the lands and, you know, what goes on before the show, the different vendors and whatnot. And we're walking, and all of a sudden I get hit in the chest with something very hard. And I honestly thought I knocked the wind out of me. I fall to the ground. I didn't know what happened. There was a second where I was like really scared for my health. And then Deanna could explain it probably. I think I let out a little yelp, and then I realized I was soaking wet. And again?
I was like,
you get the air knocked out of you, the wind knocked out of you.
Yeah.
And it turns out there were some rascals not too far away that had a slingshot water balloon. What do you call it? A slingshot?
Yeah, slingshot. You got it.
Yeah, like a full on, like 100 yards away, and it just hit me square in the chest. And I had to be taken back by one of the groundskeepers on his golf cart. And I had a big bruise and welt on my chest for like a couple weeks to come, but I was fine. I made it to the show, but like looking back now, it was hilarious. Like anyone who saw that must have been really funny to see.
I felt bad, but everyone else was like, "Are you okay?" And I was just like cracking up.
Yeah, man.
As we turned the corner, somebody told us they had been trying like a half hour to hit somebody, and they finally hit me.
Tell him about the guy who drove you on the golf cart.
So the guy who drove me on the golf cart, he was a nice gentleman. His name was Kelly. He was probably about 55 or so. He was a townie for sure. We had a nice conversation back, and he told me that he, what's the word I'm looking for? Not makes, but his hobby is producing venison. Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
No. What's the deer meat?
Oh, deer meat, venison. Okay. Yeah.
And yeah, that's what he does upstate New York. And he asked for my address and said that he was going to send me a package of meat when it was the right season for it. And he was a nice guy, and he gave me that ride back. So I gave him my work after, a little nervous about giving option. And I never got that meat. Maybe it ended up somewhere else, but yeah.
Oh, that would have been so cool if you got it. I remember one time Wong brought back some venison from one of the places he used to live, and this is not the best story, forgive me, but I'll just never forget, like, he was really concerned about cooking it because he hadn't cooked it before, and so he throws it on the grill, and he didn't want to undercook it, and that was his big concern. And I remember it got to the point where me and Greevy are kind of looking at it, and we're just kind of like, yo, he's going to char this. And so we made up something to like distract him and get him to go away. And as soon as like he walked away, like we each took a piece off and like ran away and ate it. And I think we got the only salvageable pieces. Which so Wong, if you do happen to be listening, I'm sorry about that, but I'm glad we did. Those are back in my meat eating days. Anyway, one of the things I didn't want to do here in this particular trio is kind of shoehorn myself into. I didn't want to put myself at the forefront. Can you kind of tell me, Deanna? I want to start kind of with you. I don't necessarily mean in terms of a timeline. I really don't. But obviously, it's got to be a little different when one of your close friends, you know, is, you know, the sister of the person that at the time you're dating and of course is now your husband. Can you, and maybe there's less here than I think, I could be totally ignorant, but can you, from your perspective, kind of talk me through you and Emily specifically, like coming together as kind of friends, and how has that kind of relationship evolved as kind of your relationship with Ben evolved? You know, is that a reasonable question?
Yeah. So Emily and I got like pretty close. I guess it was my senior year of high school. We were in an AP psych class together, and there weren't really many other like people that I guess like either of us would normally talk to. I don't know if, like, not in a mean way, but yeah, I was kind of like a jerk in high school, so I guess I was a little mean. And Emily sat like right in front of me, and we just kind of like got along. There's like a specific story, but I won't say it because it's a little, I don't know. We bonded over like something ridiculous that happened in the class. And
was it Emily getting hit in the chest with a water balloon?
No, but it was at someone else's expense, and we were the only jerks who like laughed and no one else laughed. So then we were like, okay, well, I guess we should be friends. So
I hope that person's not listening in.
No, well, they probably won't remember, but then from there we started going to Big Buddy, Little Buddy together. And I had a car. I had a terrible little like 91 Toyota Camry. It was like the box, and I had the automatic seatbelts. And I used to drive Emily to Big Buddy, Little Buddy, and she loved my automatic seatbelts, so we got along. And then we just started partying, and she always says how she like wanted me to come to one of Wong's parties because I was friends with Wong and Jason. I take the credit for introducing Wong to Jason, but he won't let me do that. But because I was friends with Wong first in 8th grade, and I was like really good friends with him. And then I wanted to hang out with Jason and Sam, so I would bring Alex Wong along, and then they ended up becoming friends and ditched me. So then when Emily wanted to bring me back around that like later on, they were like, no, that girl's crazy, because I was a little crazy or something. But then like she brought me to this party.
Mom told me that I was not allowed to bring Deanna to the party.
It was bad. So this never happens.
It was that infamous, like, huge Wong party in high school that everyone was at, but Deanna was not allowed to go. And I said, well, too bad. I'm bringing her anyway.
They all thought it was like a in high school or something. So, yeah, so she brought me, and then we all like had fun together, and then like I just started hanging out more, and it was like cool. We were all chill, and then over time we got really close, and then like, you know, I guess when people were home from college, like Ben was in the group, we were all friends, and then eventually me and Ben started dating, and it was like weird. We like kept it a secret for a while, and I felt bad about it because I couldn't like talk to Emily about it. So once I did, it was probably weird at first for her, I don't know, but then as like we, you know, were together longer and longer, me and Emily just became more and more like sisters. So eventually when we did get married, it was like nothing really changed. We already kind of like even started bickering like sisters, I guess, but also very close like sisters in a way that I probably give her way too much information most of the time, and she does the same with me. And it's like really cool to have, I mean, I already have 2 sisters of my own, and now it's cool to have 2 more. So it's evolved.
Right on.
Yeah.
Emily, do you have anything to add to that? Any perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to add, she thought it was a secret and it was not.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the other part she left out that is a big piece of it as well is my mom and John Johnson. I won't even say my stepdad, I'll just say John Johnson because everybody knows who he is, became really good friends with Ronnie and Glenn before Ben and Deanna started dating. So it was already, we had like a special connection because we were really great friends and our parents were really great friends. So it was definitely a unique situation, but here we are. It worked out for the better. It could have gone wrong for sure if things didn't work out the way they did, but I second that. I mean, we have definitely bickered like sisters in the past, but we spend most of our weekends together, and we're definitely now at the sister level.
Well, that's so cool. Shoot, man. Great to hear that perspective. Lord knows it's always been apparent to me that y'all are quite close. And, you know, I mean, for what it's worth, man, I think that's really cool, really special. Yeah, man. I'm going to circle us back. I feel like my impulse is always going to be kind of circle us back to fish shows. As a matter of fact, if I'm being honest with you, every bit of this project, the reason for it being special has been speaking to my friends. I think the only thing that I've considered, like maybe I'll just throw on and start talking myself, has been like about like different Fish concert memories. I think that's the only thing where I feel like maybe like a solo, like one episode or chronicle, as it were, Emily, could probably be devoted to that. I want to circle us back real quick to that Colorado trip. One, it was such a cool kind of diverse group of people. You know, to have like Jesse Herman there, it was good to see him. You know, to see Jeremy, for me, that's more special. Well, what do I know? But I know, I feel like I see Jeremy less than obviously the two of you, and it was cool to kind of be able to experience kind of a show with him. And Colorado in and of itself is such a beautiful setting. A lot of outdoor kind of things, a lot of tubing, hiking. Deanna, I remember you made that climb up that treacherous kind of little thing. That was cool. Yeah, all beautiful stuff.
Did your tube pop?
What's that?
Did your tube pop? Or was it someone else?
I don't think my tube popped. What happened? All right, so for me, that trip, I took that trip because I had finally made the decision to leave my international ed job. And my international ed job, now I can look back on it with a lot of respect and certainly be grateful for it. But at the time, it was a little kind of polarizing in terms of how it made me feel. So it was to kind of be leaving that job and suddenly have no responsibilities, to go from like working 24/7 to like not. It was almost kind of like being in kind of a hangover kind of state, you know what I'm saying? Just for me mentally. And what did happen on that tubing trip is I lost one of my blue sandals.
That's what it was.
And Deanna, later on the tubing trip, says like, Ollie, I found your sandal, which seems impossible. And I'm just like, you gotta be kidding. And she holds up a blue sandal and I'm like, unbelievable. And then she hands it to me and it's another, like, the left-handed sandal is a left-footed sandal is the one I have. And she hands me another left-footed sandal that looks just like the one that I have. And I thought that was the most appropriate metaphor for like what that time in my life was.
Two left-footed sandals. Like slightly off shades of blue. I remember you came out wearing both of them.
Oh gosh, yes. Oh man. Oh no, I have bad news. This meeting I don't have the upgraded version. This meeting is going to end in 10 minutes.
Oh boy.
Oh,
That is entirely too small of an amount of time.
Well, we'll have to do a second episode. Like when Ben gets his series, we can do a little spin-off series of our own.
My God, I would love it.
we still have 9.5 minutes. Though.
Yeah, no, let's fill it up.
Milk it at the end.
Yeah, sorry, continue.
All right, no, forgive me. So with that in mind, two left-footed sandals was a very appropriate paradigm for like who I was at that time. It was, but it was a lovely trip. Emily, I have to say one of the cooler aspects of that trip, and you may not think of it in this way because I feel like kind of to you, which is kind of the norm, was during one of the kind of day trips we took to either Golden or Boulder, you wound up having to take a call for work with a gentleman, I think his name was Tyler, but don't quote me on that, and you were trying to get him, you know, kind of placed as kind of what I would call like a headhunter equivalent. And one, I think the coolest thing in the world is when you get to see your friends in their professional set. Because you get to kind of see, in many ways, kind of the best version of themselves, because they're still themselves, but there's a degree of, obviously, formality, and certainly kind of certain gears at work in them that you don't always see, you know, when you're just chilling, you know. And it was really one of the most cool experiences I've ever seen, because it was something you were discussing on a very macro level in terms of like numbers and fits and things like that. But then at the other end, it was just like a guy trying to pick his career. And there was also this great deal of kind of humanity to it. And Emily, I wanted to, first of all, commend you on that, because I think that sticks with me kind of more than I think you probably imagine. And some of it had to do with probably the time of my life it was, but it also had a lot to do with just kind of the way you carried yourself and the professionalism. I had a lot of respect for it. Can you tell me kind of what led you to that field and just kind of what you like about that? Like what draws you to that? Like was that a correct kind of assessment of just like the balance of what you work with?
Yeah. Now that you're saying it, I feel like I remember having to take a call on the way, and I had to like look around and be like, I'm so sorry, you guys, this will only take a minute, and pick up the call for however long the car ride was. But yeah, I'm surprised that stuck with you. I think at the time I was probably at a recruiting agency. So I was helping somebody get a job and talking them through, you know, the pros and the cons and probably salary and what they're looking for in their next move. And I've been in the recruitment industry since I graduated. So I guess like 9 years now. And to be completely honest, I graduated, I knew I wanted to move to New York City, and I went on so many interviews and I couldn't get a job anywhere. Like I probably went on like 20 interviews and I just couldn't get a job. And for whatever reason, my first job out of college, somebody took a chance on me, and I knew nothing about the recruiting industry, especially the tech recruiting industry, which was software developers and things I wasn't too familiar with. But immediately it was definitely the right profession for me. Fast forward, I'm still in the recruiting world. So I think it's an industry where you feel like really good about what you're doing, because you're literally changing someone's life by getting them a job, changing their life in a different way. But like maybe they got laid off, maybe they got fired, especially in the times right now. And it's a very rewarding profession. And for me, I think it's a balance between, you know, not only helping people get jobs, but helping companies find the right people to build out their product or culture or whatever it is they're doing. And anyone who gets a new job or hires someone, there's just a feeling of just excitement. And yeah, I think being on the other side and being able to facilitate that goes a long way.
Yeah, how special. I'm gonna tell you what, Deanna, I want to ask you a question. I have 5 minutes, and I'm hoping I can upgrade the account and still maintain the conversation, because I really don't want to lose it, and so bear with me on that. Deanna, in a similar vein, I feel like most belts I've ever owned have come out of the kindness of your heart. your field is something that if I tried to talk about, I would butcher it very badly. I think I make a great deal of effort to make sure that my hat matches my shirt when I leave the house, and that's about the extent of my fashion sense. Can you tell me a little bit about what, no pun intended, kind of drew your eye to kind of the fashion world, and maybe a little bit about how your perspectives kind of changed as you approached fashion as still very much a passion, but also kind of a business?
Yeah, so I went to FIT as a fine arts student, and during that time I interned with this company that makes accessories, and when I graduated college I didn't really know what to do, and I reached out to them and they ended up hiring me. So it wasn't something that I like intended on like being. I started off as a belt designer, and I didn't like think that was going to be my goal in life to be a belt designer, but it was just like kind of available, so I did it. And I worked in leather goods. I would make belts and wallets. I started in men's, and that was cool. That's why you have so many belts. I worked on Calvin Klein, John Barbados, Guess, bunch of brands. And so Ben has an extensive collection. And then I started working on women's belts, which was cool. And then I started working on Carhartt, which was like a much more rugged brand and not as much, they called fashion the F word. So that was like weird because I was used to having to look at trends and trying to make them happen. And then I ended up at Steve Madden recently, starting off in belts. And now I don't do belts at all. I do handbags, which is a whole different game. And
okay. Those
Steve
I don't have any of. Yeah.
Just a quick plug.
Yeah.
You want to design this? A quick plug.
Yes, a quick plug. Lots of belt bags. Like Steve Madden's very fashion forward, and you have to like, you literally, if you're not on Instagram looking at every trend, like you're like too late. And now I actually work on Betsy Johnson, which is under the Steve Madden brand, but it's like a love-hate thing because it is fun to be so like you have to be creative on a daily basis, which is cool because that's really essentially what I always wanted to do. But sometimes it's hard when it's like forced because you have such crazy deadlines, and it's like, you know, like if maybe like you had more time to think about it, you could probably make something evolve even more. But when you're under this like calendar that we're on, it's like, it's so crazy because like right now it's like spring, well, I guess it's summer now, but I like just finished a line for spring 2021. So everything's like a year in advance too, which is why you have to be ahead. So sometimes that can almost like take the fun out of it, but it's cool. I mean, it's fun, I guess. I have a lot of bags now.
There you go.
I know we don't have that much time, so yeah.
I'm working on upgrading right now. Please forgive me on that. Emily, one question I had for you. I am kind of weird. For two places that I have spent a great deal of time, and those two places are New York and Philly. Comically enough, I've been to Philly about maybe 15 times in my life, if not more. But I've always been kind of a guest of someone. And I find that kind of comical because as much as I've been to Philly very often, like I still feel like I couldn't guide you to, you know, Lincoln Financial Field or, you know, the Liberty Bell. I couldn't tell you which end was up. And the other one is obviously New York because we live right here. Can you kind of tell me, as a person who's lived in both spots, can you, I don't want to say kind of compare and contrast, I feel like that's a little bit of a contrived question, but like what have you kind of enjoyed about living in both cities? Like what are kind of your, I don't know, I guess, how did you feel about living in both spots, and what kind of